Good morning and happy Friday to you. This is Jared,
This is Isaac.
and this is the Uraine Ordonez 5 Diamond Group podcast. Let's jump right in.
Sounds like a plan.
See ya then. So today, on today's episode, we are going to dive into some breaking news that's happened over the week. Of course, it's September, and we are now, a little over 60, 90 days from an election in a politically diverse environment.
Divided
Environment with a global pandemic and falling economy and social injustice, and now with all of that stacked on, well, things are going to happen. Is it political or is it genuine? Let's dive in and let's figure this out. Eviction moratoriums that both Governor Sisolak and President Trump have both enacted over the last days of August. And so now, in the beginning of September, we have new rules that apply for property owners and that benefit renters. And we're going to dive into the impact that creates for both sides. And we have to talking on that, man.
Yeah. So
you sent me the notice that we have a local, statewide ban, right?
Correct.
And then we also have now a national ban that's been implemented by President Trump, right?
Yeah. So I was with a client yesterday, and she was like, She's like, "Is this fake news?" And she's like, "This can't be true," And so
was this one of the investors?
Yeah. Well, it was just kind of sucked because this is limiting inventory as well. So, and she saw it from that perspective of, they were probably hoping more inventory to come on, so to be able to go out and shop with some more options.
Yeah.
As some homes became available on the market as tenants moved out. And so she was a little upset, but CDC, that's Trump passed an order, so
Yeah, so let's start from the top. Back in early August, the White House did release an executive order fighting the pandemic, but it didn't specifically articulate a moratorium or anything to prevent evictions. And so many of the health department experts expressed their concern about that because it's not doing enough to help protect. So the CDC, of all places, released an order that specifically states or forces us to be able to keep things in place until the end of the year, December 31st.
And now the question before we get into the details of it is, can the CDC do that?
What sort of authority does that have?
Yeah.
Well, and so I'm not familiar with all the government processes, especially with the way things are, because there's been so many blurred lines and broken lines that it's very, at least for me, and I don't pay enough attention to that. But the fact that the Centers of Disease Control put out this order, and the purpose, the intent behind it is to help folks continue to self-isolate. The order talks about how the importance of allowing people who are in their current state of housing remain there so that we don't continue to spur the spread, right? So if we walk down the path of, okay, now people can go through the process of eviction. Yeah, they've lost their jobs. They haven't been able to make payments for months, and they're sick. And now they've got to be evicted and figure something else out. Does that potentially create a bigger issue than just pausing this for 3 or 4 more months? The decision that they've made is it's better that we pause it for a few more months, at least through the end of the year. And that's the purpose and the intent behind it. When you take a look at now Governor Sisolak's order for the next 45 days, part of his intent behind the 45-day extension is because they are not able to, the state of Nevada is not able to get some of the funding assistance that would be needed because, putting that moratorium is part one, But part two is getting rental assistance out to those who absolutely need it. And so,
And so they're talking about the $300 million fund that they're applied for. It looks like, for the next few weeks, if it goes through, it's an extra $300 on unemployment,
right,
and should help be able to take care of some of the necessities. So, but that takes time, and so So I agree. That was definitely Sisolak's idea behind it. However, it is helping, but it's also hurting. So it's kind of one of those situations where
which one do you take?
Yeah.
Worst of both.
Yeah.
Which worse is not so bad. And so while Governor Sisolak only put a 45-day extension, the CDC order actually extends through the end of the year. So the federal government has that order in place. The intent, at least with Sisolak, allows them time to set up a mediation or some sort of solution in the next 45 days, and they said they couldn't get that up until October 1st, even without the federal assistance that's there. So the CDC order does state also that this rule won't apply if there are solutions in place. So it sounds like if the state of Nevada can get something in place to allow that resolution to happen where renters can make that transition without having to be forced out, or property owners can then start processing the evictions of some sort, there might be a solution to that even sooner. So they're shooting for October on that. I'm just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. Cool.
And so we have a federal and a local moratorium for the next 45 days.
Minimum.
Minimum. At the minimum.
Yeah. Well, this national one is through the end of the year.
Yeah.
So what does that mean on the economy? Well, you're going to see a lot of less homes on the market, which will continue driving the prices of any home that hits the market now, just because inventory is still low. The new report was like 1.3 months, 1.6 months worth of inventory, which is insanely low. And so as long as we don't get new inventory or enough inventory to suffice the buyers that we have, well, then we're going to be on the shortage. Prices are going to continue to be driven up. We put an offer in for, and 13 offers were on the home. Mm-hmm. So that just tells you how much demand there is. Yeah, exactly. And it went to a cash buyer, and that's fine, and that's how it is. And so it's just hurting the people that really have the availability, the possibility to be able to purchase a home, because there's not enough homes. On the other hand, the sellers are able to maximize their profits because of that.
Right.
And for those that absolutely need that, eviction moratorium, then that's great. It's helping out.
Right. And so, part of understanding, the big picture is on one level beneficial, so that we can help both sides of the conversation. But when you take a look at the hard numbers, right, like the actual numbers, we have 2.2 million here in southern Nevada, specifically in the Las Vegas Valley, and in Clark County, we had 59,000 confirmed cases, and the death number is like 1,100 over the last last 6 months. And so the conversation that's constantly going on is, there's a small segment of the population that's being affected by it, but all of us are paying the bigger toll on it. And the purposes behind it is not part of this discussion. We're not diving into that. But the fact is that we've seen the trend in number falling, even lower. And that's just going into fall. And that was expected, right? Mm-hmm. But as we get into the flu season, let's see what happens. And plus now, PSA here, the next 3 weeks, testing is available for free for your entire family here in the city of Las Vegas at 4 different locations at the Station casinos, Fiesta Henderson, Texas Station, and Boulder Station, and I believe I forget the other one on there, but check the Southern Nevada Health District for more information on those locations if you wanted to get your family tested. Now, that said, more testing, more numbers, and we're probably going to see that number kind of go up even more. But at the end of the day, where do we draw the line in the sand to be able to help the community and the public health crisis, as well as keep things going? And so, from an owner's perspective, let's take it from the owner's standpoint: property owners, investors, or landlords. I had a client who closed in February, and had a tenant in there that wasn't signed on his contract when he inherited the property, and worked for 3 weeks to try and get this person out of the property, and they refused. And March 17 come around, and he's stuck with this person who's locked in his room, doesn't pay the rent, has people come over, and has lost out on that opportunity, like in that space, like that's where he wanted to move into. So folks like that who don't have multiple properties, who don't have assets to help cover their losses or insurance plans, this was his first home purchase.
Yeah.
And it had a tenant section in the back, which was great for him because he wanted to have his family move in there, but he can't do that because of this person that's stuck in there. What about them?
Yeah.
And so he doesn't make lots of money, but he's got to be able to get out and work through this situation as a result of this pandemic. And I feel for him, man.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing he can do at the moment, and he still can't do it.
And this is where some people will take advantage of the system and of the current situation.
Right.
And so I do feel bad for for the people that absolutely need it.
Absolutely.
The ones that are laid off, the ones that are still furloughed, that have very limited income. Great, this is going to help them, absolutely, because it's much better to put food on the table than pay rent. Now they don't have to worry about that. But there's going to be people that are going to take advantage of it.
That's right.
And that's hurts the people that are really are hurting already.
Right.
So
the reason why while the intent behind this is a good cause, blanketing the entire surface allows folks like that to take advantage and to manipulate the system. In fact, going back to the whole unemployment numbers that they had, at the beginning of the year, the Dieter, when you look at the number of cases that were filed between March and June, it was 10 times more than what the hardest segment of time was in the Great Recession 10 years ago. They were not ever prepared to even remotely handle the volume of cases that happened there. And so when you look at that number, there is a huge percentage of fraud or strategic moving, and many people are aware of that, and they're going to take advantage of the situation. And unfortunately, there's nothing that we can really do in that sense. And that's why it hurts.
Yeah.
That's why it hurts. And that's why there needs to be a solution made, and we hope Sisolak can figure something out on in the next 45 days to be able to create some solution, some resolutions for owners on that.
And so one of the cool things about the national eviction moratorium is that there are certain requirements that need to be fulfilled, right? So it's not just don't pay your rent. And keep in mind, that you're going to have to pay your rent sometime. So just because you don't have to pay it today doesn't mean that you don't have to pay it at all. It also doesn't mean that there's not going to be any fees, any penalties from your landlord for not paying your rent. So if you are able to make that rent payment, do it. Who was telling me yesterday that they had tenants even just paying a little bit, just kind of good faith, just saying, hey, I can't pay you the full amount, but here's 50% of it, and they appreciate that because they see that they're struggling, but their intent is to continue paying, and so he's happy to work with them, and he's not thinking of doing any penalties or anything like that, just kind of helping each other out because it's helping him out as well. So keep that in mind with your landlords. Just work with them and try to find a solution between them. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be a day where you're going to have to pay all that back. And if you don't, you're going to get evicted. and then that rental history is going to follow you onto the next rental, and that could hinder you from getting another rental.
So we are entering some interesting challenges in the next 60, 90 days, and a lot of it, from what I understand, from what I can see, is it's probably going to be politically driven, but there are others who genuinely want to help and create solutions. So part of having this conversation is to clarify exactly where is the impact and how can we best serve our homeowners. So like from a property owner's standpoint, and being able and having to lose money and still make their mortgage payment without that income, it's a real strain, and that is going to be growing into pent up demand, or even inventory, probably at the beginning of next year or towards the middle of next year. What we mean by that is that there might be a section of the market that will probably go into some sort of foreclosure. Those are going to be those investment properties, because if they are mom and pop like some of our clients who have a few properties and they're trying to make those payments, they may not be able to, and so they're probably going to show up on the foreclosure list, or some sort of short sale, or somewhere in there. So it really is. It's as agents, we've got to be prepared to be able to kind of navigate that and help educate our clients. And we also need to help our property owners be able to do that, because when we have distressed inventory, right, foreclosures, as just looking back on 10 years ago, the more inventory we get, the we're going to keep. That's going to drive even more activity, which is going to be good in that sense. But the problem is that people are losing out on what they worked hard for, and it's creating a bigger problem. And we just have to pay attention to where that's headed.
And before anyone decides to go into foreclosure or even a short sale, please reach out to us. Let's figure out, maybe we can find a solution for that. And then we can explore all options before you make the first choice. Just very important to do your research, make a very well educated decision, because it's going to affect you regardless. And so making the better choice will definitely help.
Being informed, getting the right information the first time is super, super important.
And that's what we're here for. So
there's no obligation, no commitment, just yet your information to be able to help understand your options.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that brings us to, I guess, a lot of people are waiting for that opportunity, next year, or once people start putting homes on sale on their foreclosure.
Well, let's talk about that perspective, right? When COVID came in and we froze the economy, the knee-jerk response from a lot of people is, "Oh, the housing economy is going to go down and home prices are going to go down." Is that the case? Is that reality?
We've seen the complete opposite.
That's right. We have, and that has a lot to do with the strength of the economy, as well as the demand for buyers, as well as shortage in our inventory market. So when you have less supply and a decent demand, that is why our home prices are going up. Now, enter the late quarter of this year with these challenges, or next year for that matter, and if there is going to be a segment of the market that goes into foreclosure, and we have low inventory, what does that do? Well, it just adds more inventory, and hopefully it satisfies our buyer demand. It has absolutely no indication still that prices would go down, values would go down. In order for that to happen, the distressed inventory not only has to be pretty excessive, we also have to have the buyer demand decreased, right? So what would drive reduced buyer demand? Unemployment, higher rates, people losing their jobs, not being able to take care of their situation. When you have those two combinations, now we're heading in the wrong direction in that sense. So
pay cuts as well.
Yeah. And so while we are talking about some distressed inventory, we're not talking about reduction in home prices or values in that sense. And so being able to take advantage of those, I mean, it's going to continue to be in a strong real estate market for the next year, easily.
And something to keep in mind is that a lot of people think foreclosures, and they're automatically thinking a house that's going to need a lot of work, Back in 2005, 2007, when the economy crashed, right? A lot of people were pouring concrete down the pipes, and I remember I walked a house in like 2009. Air conditioning was missing, the copper piping was missing, and they just took a hammer or something to all the cabinets and the counters. And so I think a lot of people have that idea that that's what a foreclosure looks like. And now these days, the foreclosures are beautiful homes that are move-in ready.
Yeah.
So they're going to go for top dollar. And so even though you do see them on Zillow for heavily reduced price,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's going to sell for that price. So even if we do see more foreclosures, you're still probably going to get close to paying market value for that home just because they're in optimum condition. So.
Yeah, and I've got a client who's looking at bank-owned properties,
Mm-hmm.
right? 8 years ago, when I started here in the business, you can go to a bank list and have 2 or 3 pages worth of properties listed on there. I just checked this week on Bank of America, one home in Southern Nevada on their REO list, and their number that they had on there for the price point showed a pretty awesome price point. Like it was 150,000 for a $300,000 home. But and so here's the discrepancy. People are going to Zillow and these third-party sites and getting these numbers that they see online, but they don't reflect what the going price will end up being. Super important to talk to someone who can distinguish that part, because when you go to the MLS and you see what that's listed for, it's the market value price, and the bank is probably going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's listed on another site does not mean you're going to get that price, or you have justification to be able to put in an offer at that amount. It's just a waste of time. And so there are programs out there to help purchase on that front. But at the end of the day, part of being able to understand all that is being able to talk to a local expert on it. So again, no obligation. Reach out on that one.
And there's a difference between pre-foreclosures and foreclosures.
Yes.
And I did a whole video on that, so maybe I'll drop a link somewhere. But just keep in mind that we are seeing a lot of on Zillow pre-foreclosures, and all that means is that there's a notice of default on that property.
Well, there is a filing with the county on it. Zillow automatically registers it as a pre-foreclosure. And so what that does is it allows people to just get super excited about a property that might not even sell. They could, when a filing happens, you're 90 days late. Okay, they got a notice.
Right.
And you can get caught up.
But a lot of people right now are 90 days late or more.
And if they're not using the forbearance option, that's where pre-foreclosure would come in and get registered. And that doesn't mean they don't have the money. It just means they just got to they got to pay it off. And what's the solution?
Well,
if they don't.
Well, even if they didn't, even if it did go for sale, a lot of those homeowners, if you check on public filings, there will be people that bought in 2009, 2010, 2015 at a super low price, so they have tons of equity. So the moment that it sells, they're gonna pay it off, but they're not gonna sell it for a low ball offer. They're not gonna accept a low ball offer. They're gonna want the most amount of money, because they need to pay that money back, and they want to take their equity and maybe go rent or move in with a family member in the meantime and save.
So just keep that in mind. A pre-foreclosure is no indication for a low ball investment win that you're going to go and flip a property on.
Correct.
So, do your research. Talk to an expert. Help you out. Cool, man. Home or for the population who is truly affected in this situation. If you are in a situation where you can't make the rent and you are benefiting from this experience, our hearts go out to you. This is not a situation that we need to be in, and it's an unfortunate challenge that we're faced with. The options that are out there for you on a rental portion are going to be hopefully more. You're going to have more options, but just keep in mind that as home prices continue to go up, rent will also continue to go up. And if at the end of this experience, people have to make that transition from their current place to the next place, it's more than likely your rent rate might go up. or in order to keep your current rent, you got to downsize to a smaller house, and that's a trend that's going to continue for a while. If you have the capacity, there are programs, not just first-time homebuyer programs, but other programs that will help you with minimum out-of-pocket get into an ownership position. If rising rent rates are an issue, and you want to manage that, you want to control that number, the only way to do that is owning a property. And there are ways to help you get into that. We specialize in helping first-time home buyers get into properties like that. And this is where especially you can benefit from that, being able to tackle that challenge. Whether you're ready for that now or it takes another year to get that ready, have that conversation. Let's figure out a strategy and a plan to get you in there. Because the best way to help our community, the best way to help have be able to manage some of these problems is being able to own that segment in your life and have that as a part of your future. Have your own family home. It may not be initially what you want, but we can definitely get you into that ownership position and we can grow from there. It just takes time and patience.
And if you are a teacher, if you are a veteran, you guys get some amazing perks.
First responders.
First responders as well, yes.
Law enforcement as well.
As of the moment of shooting this video, the interest rates with down payment assistance is 2.75%. That is ridiculously low, which means that either you can afford more home for the same price, or you can get a smaller home with a small payment that you wouldn't have to worry about going up, because for the next 30 years, that's exactly what your payment will be. And besides the fact that you can move in with, if you're a veteran, you can move in with zero money down, right? And if you are a teacher or hero, then you can essentially get your entire down payment covered by this program. So if you don't like free money, well then I guess you don't like free money.
Go to Bank of America.
Yeah. Then, but regardless, I mean, you just even if you had your money saved, keep it saved, and then get this down payment assistance program and get this killer rate, which is gonna just benefit you for the next 30 years of paying that mortgage.
Yeah. So all in all, at the end of the day, yeah, we're in an interesting pickle of time that we're dealing with. The next 60 days is going to be really interesting to see how the whole national situation plays out, because that political divide is massive. And while we remain neutral in that perspective, we are very aware of both sides of the conversation, and our goal, our job, is to help clarify what are the areas that impact us here in the industry, and we can absolutely help you with that understanding on that front. So again, personal consultation, no commitment in terms of being able to have those conversations. We're here to help. That's at the end of the day, that's our role on it. That said, another crazy month in real estate. We've got some numbers that show we kept up with some of the pace that was happening last month on the closings. A little less closing activity, and I think a lot of it has to do with everybody trying to close on the last day of the month and maybe missing that mark. Like, yeah. Hello. But it's we are seeing a rise in probates as a result of some of these deaths, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so probate activity has spiked up, and since there are no court hearings actively being held on the public front, in the probate arena, a lot of those are just being processed through. And so if the next episode in 2 weeks, we're going to talk more about that probate process, why it's super important to get prepared right now, because if we are entering a season of increased COVID cases, that means that the death rate will probably spike as well. And while that's not a subject we want to really elaborate on, the reality is if you do own a property and you have not set up a will or instructions as to how to pass assets on, it is a conversation that needs to be had. And we're going to dive deeper as to the options that people should consider now, how to be able to help prevent probate, because probate's not fun if you are a family member of someone who's passed away, and they own a house, and you're not getting it. Tune in.
Yeah, and let me tell you that when I used to work at a bank, seeing that family member come in and by law they cannot provide any information because you weren't on those accounts, you weren't a beneficiary. It just sucks to be able to, or to let the person know that there's nothing that can be done until you get some court documents, and that is a long process. It's a very expensive process, or it can be. So definitely, we'll have some good tips on that video for you guys, and something to take serious, especially in 2020.
Right. All right. We're good.
I think so.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. That's today's episode on the Uraine Ordonez 5 Diamond Group podcast. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please take a moment, subscribe down below. You can follow us on all of the social outlets. You can DM us on any one of those channels, and we'll be able to talk to you specifically on it. Appreciate your time.
And if there's a particular subject that you want us to speak on and do some research, please also let us know in the comments below, so that way we can do an episode on anything that you guys interest you. After all, this is for you guys, and so please let us know what you like, what you don't like, and that way we can keep improving our podcasts.
Yeah, man.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it a wonderful day.
We'll catch you guys on the next one.